Hello, welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm excited to be with you here today on Friday, December 5th, 2025. I want to talk about a verse in the Bible that has been on my mind lately. And this is the verse of Matthew 20:16. And it says that, let me actually get the actual quote. So the last shall be first, and the first last, for many will be called, but few chosen. And there are a lot of ways that we can think about this verse. There are a lot of ways that the Bible works. The Bible is famous for being very layered in meaning, where you have the literal translation. A lot of people stop at the literal meaning. So this particular verse of Matthew 20:16 is about workers in a vineyard and the landowner and how he pays them. So you can look at that from a very literal perspective, but there are deeper meanings. And when Jesus spoke, he spoke in deeper meanings, and he was conveying messages in many layers for different people. If you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you can get different meaning. And I believe that this verse in particular is particularly um, prophetic. I think that this verse is showing us what is coming and how we will change. And I see this happening already. Now, one way to think of this is those who are, I hear people talk about this, like the children will be the ones to inherit the earth, right? That's another thing that we hear. The children will inherit the earth. So the last, the children kind of right now they follow what the grown-ups are doing. And so we might want to think about this in terms of like maybe in we will become like children. That's another part of the Bible. We that grown-ups will start to cherish more and look to children, look to the children within them in order to make decisions and to because there's that joy within life. If we can let ourselves lead by joy and by play, then that might help us to find our way easier, to find even what we are meant to do as a vocation, what lights us up, what brings us joy, what makes us feel, what feels like play. Maybe that's where we should be spending more time. Maybe that's what it's all about. I think another way, and then there's the humble, the meek, the ones who aren't striving to be on top, the ones who aren't taking advantage of other people. And so I like to think of it as those who have come forth in service in this life and truly in service to God, to Source, who are living in accordance, who are not necessarily, when we look at them, they're not really the high and mighty, but their souls are very strong. And on the other side, they are the leaders. They are the ones who, if you think of it in terms of, I don't really think of it this way, but who reign in heaven, let's say. I think that we are starting to see some of this. There are hints of this happening. And one of the ways that I see this is with these files, these famous files. As we're recording this, there's been a lot this year and in previous years about these files of a particular person who is no longer on this planet. And there's been a lot of demand. People want the names on this list released. I think this is a very applicable way to think about the last becoming first and the first becoming last, because the names that are on this list are people who are associated with some very serious crimes. I don't think there are a lot of people out there anymore who don't think that our our the rulers of the country and of many countries. I think a lot of people see a lot of corruption, and they associate that with greed. And the same with leaders in the corporate world. I think a lot of people can plainly see that there's a lot of greed with power, positions of power, and those are very powerful positions. That's the way that we have society structured. But the crimes that are associated with this list are almost unimaginable. I mean, it's almost too much for the mind to even be able to comprehend the accusations associated with the names on this list. And the crimes go way beyond greed. They go way beyond power. It's perverse, it's torturous, and it deals with very young people. And it's heartbreaking. And if anything ever actually comes where we have consensus and there's public release of the names, those names that are in the top of their field, whether that is in business, leaders of industry, titans of industry, whether it's leaders of public service as it's meant to be, they will become last. They will topple. There is no way for them to continue to hold the power that they have because it's an illusion. Nobody will support them if the truth actually comes out. And so that's one way I see this the first becoming last, where it's like, oh, these people that we idolize, that we worship, celebrities that we worship, and they're involved with this darkness that that it has been hidden. If that comes to light, that changes everything in terms of what society thinks of them and the power that they have. It will be stripped. It will absolutely be stripped. And another example of this is people who go through, a lot of people go through awakenings from a health journey perspective, where they have a health crisis and they don't get results in the traditional way. And it leads them to start doing research. And as they do research, they start seeing that things that they trusted in terms of the way society has been structured in that aspect of life, in the aspect of how we take care of ourselves, how we feed ourselves, how we try to get help when we're sick, that those industries there is a lot of corruption. Again, there's so much corruption there. And when the onion starts getting peeled, I know that there are a lot of you out there who are watching this, maybe watching the recording, and you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've been there yourself. Your eyes have been open to things that are not what they seem. They're not what we've been sold as citizens in our society. The truth of what we think is the truth, what we're fed as the truth, is the inversion of what the actual truth is. So again, we may have very, very profitable industries that we are feeding because we trust it. And as we learn and as things come to light and as we start to expand our consciousness and we can hold more truth, then we start withdrawing from those systems. It is already happening. It is already happening with a lot of people in my world. A lot of people in my world. The walls are coming down. The veils are coming off in terms of the things that they trusted, that they now have done research and they've realized that there's something else going on. And they're trying to figure out how to stop participating in that. And so the more people that extract themselves from these things, these very lucrative business models, then they're not going to be profitable anymore. They won't have the energy, the participation, and they will not be able to be sustained. So again, we may have entire industries that are very, very profitable, that people pay for, buy into, and as people extract themselves for that, then that can't be sustained. So it's interesting because the society that we're in is an inverted society. What we are sold in so many different ways that we look into this one prism of life, the life experience, and we can look at it in terms of health, we can look at it in terms of education. I mean, that's another thing. As people change, we kind of have this religion of science in a certain way where people, as long as science has proved it, then they're willing to accept it. That was my approach for a long time, honestly. And, if you could show me a study that backs something up, I would really pay attention. And a lot of people are starting to realize that there's a lot of money, a lot of science it's funding, right? So if you want to be able to research something, it takes money. You have to get your funding for it. That means that there are people who are pulling the strings who have an agenda and they have something that they want proven. And I mean, there are scientists whistleblowing about this. I'm reading a book about it right now. I mean, it's not the whole part of the book, but it talks about the disillusion, how this author was a scientist and became disillusioned because of this funding issue. And you don't have the freedom that, you want to get something, you're going to get funding for something that's sexy in terms of, it's going to really wow people because it's going to get more attention, and then it's going to be better for the funding, and it's going to, and of course the people who have the money to fund these things why do they want it funded, why do they want this proven? So and that's not, it's not across the board, but there is a lot of that going on. And the more that people start to recognize, wait a minute, are these results even true? Is this even something that I can believe, or is there an agenda behind this? Then, you know, even science, people start to think about scientific, quote unquote, scientific research in a different way, understanding that it is fallible. It is, there are a lot of examples of fallible research. And so the things that we think we can trust, there's still human beings behind it. And they are, it's just because somebody's wearing a lab coat, for example, doesn't mean that they're not going to succumb to human greed or being pushed around or whatever it might be. There are humans behind this. So again, something that we might not have thought about very much before, and we live very much, or at least I live very much in a society where science is like top echelon. That's what you trust. If there's scientific backing behind it, then it gets people's belief. And so that's another example of the prism where people can start to look at that differently, and it will change their experience. It'll change, this, like, the be all and end all is if you have scientific research. Well, if people stop trusting that the way that they trust it, then it doesn't, the first becomes last again. So there are a lot of different ways that this applies, that the first will become last and the last will become first. And I think that it is something that we're starting to see. And I'm curious to see how, I don't know in my lifetime if, like, how dramatic that will be, how dramatic that will come. I do think there will be a lot of big changes within my lifetime, but I think, even in the next, it might take a few generations, but maybe even in a couple of generations, we'll be living in a very different society. And we will be, sometimes in hindsight, we will notice just how different society is when that inversion of the illusion that we're sold, once that illusion crumbles and people start to see the truth, and how that flips things. So thank you so much for watching. I do have the Miracle Summit tomorrow. Tomorrow, Saturday, December 6th, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. I have 9 incredible speakers. I really hope that you'll register to join that. You can find that on karagoodwin.com. And it's free to join, or you can get the replay and then you can engage with it over and over again. The replay will be available for the first 24 hours for free. But if you want lifetime access where you can keep going back into that energy and that vibration and that inspiration and allow it to help to elevate your vibration, then please get the replay. It's only $27. And then if you want the VIP pass, you can, again, that comes with the replay. So don't purchase both. But it also, you have amazing gifts from every speaker. And there are some pre-recorded gifts that you can engage with over and over again. But there's also, Baba Sam has a free private healing session for half an hour with him. And the VIP pass is only $55. So it's well worth it. Highly recommend, if you can, do consider upgrading to the VIP. But anyway, even if you can't, come for free and join us. We've got, it's always hard for me to think of every name, so I do apologize in advance for anybody that I leave out. But Cheryl Page, Amanda Romania, Julie Ryan, Rachel Chamness, Helen Yee Plen, Aubrey Nicole, Baba Sam Shelley, Kimberly Meredith, and there's one. I knew that I would miss one. I'm so sorry. There is, in every single one is spectacular. Eva Mueller. Yes, love her. She's going to be our first speaker. So there's going to be transmissions. We're going to get into a high vibration, perfect for the holidays. So please do join us. And wherever you are in time and space, as you engage with this recording or with whether you're with me here live, thank you so much for being here. Bless you, and I'll see you next time.